à tous, bienvenue sur Only a Giant Podcast numéro 116. Je suis Plaxé, je suis en solo seulement pour l'introduction puisque l'on vient au moment où j'enregistre cette introduction de finir le podcast avec Thiergo, évidemment comme d'habitude, depuis l'Australie, il était 2h du mat, il est reparti se coucher, et on a eu Jerry Foley depuis les États-Unis qui est l'animateur principal de Giant Insider Podcast. Peut-être que si vous écoutez des podcasts en anglais, eh bien, vous le connaissez, il s'occupe également du journal Giant Insider. Donc, il a été avec nous, on a parlé de plein de choses, on a parlé de la draft, on a parlé de Hard Knocks, on a parlé de sa vision des Giants sur les 10 dernières années et comment il voit la saison à venir. Voilà, c'est une interview très intéressante. Il est resté avec nous un peu plus d'une demi-heure pour participer à ce podcast. Donc, ça nous a fait très plaisir. Et sans plus attendre, eh bien, c'est parti. Voici l'interview de Jerry Foley. Can we start? Maybe can you introduce yourself, because I'm not sure everyone knows and listening to the Giant Insider podcast in France. So if you can introduce yourself, explain what you guys are doing, the Giant Insider newspaper, and everything you can tell us about you.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Jerry Foley, I'm the senior editor of the Giant Insider newspaper, which has been around for a very long time, over 30 years. Chris Bisignano is my partner. He is the beat writer for the Giant Insider, so he's always at the facility. So he's the man kind of on the ground. But we've started the podcast, I think it was like 2018 or 2019, and it just kind of took on a life of its own, and here we are today. So we host the podcast once a week in the off season, and then when the season starts, we have it twice a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and twice a week during the season. Yeah. So Chris is always in contact with the players, right?
He has a lot of contact with the players. Yes, he's there for the practices, whatever practices they allow the media to join. Mm-hmm. But locker room, press conferences, things like that. Absolutely. Yep.
So are you kind of I don't know if you have the stats, or are you the most popular podcast about the Giants in the US right now?
I have no idea. I don't keep track. I don't even know where I would find that, but we've been doing it a long time.
It's definitely at the top.
We have a lot of listeners, so we just do it for enjoyment. To be honest with you, it's the fact that people listen and they always say like things like, you guys seem like two guys talking at a bar about the Giants.
Yeah,
that's the best compliment we can get. So we always say, yes, we have to keep it professional in that you cover the Giants, but we're fans as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thiergo, do you want to ask the first question?
Yeah.
Which is number 2 in our list.
Yeah, and what you said about being podcasters and fun, like it's something that we can feel when we listen to your podcast. And obviously the past 10 years have been quite difficult for Giants fan. Yes. But what we wanted to ask you is, with Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll on board right now, what is your feeling about them, and like, do you think the Giants are on the right path now that they are at the helm?
I do, and look, we were saying before, when Dave Gettleman was in charge, we made the best of it. We tried to give him a chance, and then as time went on, you just realized what a mistake it was that whole era was. And the hires he made for head coach. Pat Shurmur was just really a glorified offensive coordinator. Joe Judge is what he was, right? Like he was kind of a disaster. But with Shane, when you watch Hard Knocks, you see the kind of person he is running the organization. He's clearly in charge. He has a vision for the team. He's only going to pay certain amounts at certain positions, whereas Gettleman kind of was all over the place. So that's a refreshing change. Now, the draft picks have to work out for Joe Schoen. Thibodeau has to become a premier pass rusher. Evan Neal he has to become a functional right tackle. He's had some hits and a lot of players, I wouldn't say misses yet, but they have to start doing something, right? John Michael Schmitz is another one. His better draft picks have been like Wandale, Deontay Banks. So from that standpoint, he's done well. Free agency, remains to be seen. We'll see what happens with how he's built the line. But look, it's a long answer, but year one was weird in that the Giants won, and it didn't set them back, but it set the rebuild back a little bit in a strange way, I think. Because now it's like, okay, they won, then they tried to keep things together, and then they had the year they had last year. So now Shane, it just feels like Shane's I wrote this a couple weeks ago, or the last issue. It just seems like Shane is clearly the man in charge. You see it at Hard Knocks. And then Dable, look, there's not many coaches I'd rather have. He got Daniel Jones to become a pretty good quarterback in 2022. Again, 2023 went off the rails from the injury standpoint, from that Andrew Thomas injury on. But yeah, I think the Giants are in the right hands. I really do. And it's not just because we want access to the organization to say that. I mean, we've been very honest about Dave Gettleman and Judge and Shermer as time went on. So, we'll criticize Shane and Dable as things happen. And Dable hasn't done everything right. But I think for the most part, yes, I'm very happy. We're very happy with the direction that the franchise is going right now. But again, you got to start winning. You got to and you got to start hitting home runs, like we say in the draft. And that remains to be seen. So.
Yeah. Is this the feeling in the media also? Because when I hear people talking, Daniel Jones is the worst quarterback in the NFL, worse than any rookies that haven't played any snaps. I mean, it's, I don't know.
Just stupid.
Feels like we are. Yeah. I know.
He's a middle of the road quarterback, is what he is, right? Yeah. And I've said I wanted to move on, but they didn't. So now this is it. Like, this is year 6. This was. You guys probably don't remember, Phil Simms' year 6 was 1984. That's when he took off, right? So they built the line around him. They've given him a legitimate number 1 weapon in Malik Neighbors. They've built around him now. So now's the time for Jones. But to call him one of the worst, that's just the media piling on. I think that's ridiculous. He's a middle of the road. He's in that 15 to 20 quarterback range, I think. On a bad day, he's in the 20s. On a good day, he's high teens. So 15 to 20 is probably where he is.
Agreed. Yeah. So you were talking about Hard Knocks. I have a question about Saquon Barkley because I watched. Yeah. I think it's 2 episodes now, right? The
third one is tomorrow night. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night in U.S. time.
Yeah, it's really
so Saquon was the main story of the first 2 episodes. And you will tell us what you think about that. But when I was watching maybe the first episode, my feeling was, okay, Joe Shane knew for a long time that Saquon wasn't going to be back because he doesn't want to pay this kind of money for a running back. Is it also what you felt when you watched the first 2 episodes?
Absolutely. That was the biggest takeaway. It was like, he's not coming back. And Shane made it pretty clear when he said, well, I offered him a contract last year. He'd still be here. You can tell he was pissed. It just seemed like they were moving on. Like, the only option was to sign Xavier McKinney of the 2. But once they traded for Brian Burns, that went off the table. So out of the 2, McKinney was clearly the priority. I think Barkley being gone was a foregone conclusion. And I think those 2 episodes really showed that, right? Shane, look, that's what I said before. Shane only pays a certain amount for certain positions, and he wasn't paying that much for a running back who at age 27 is on the downslope of his career. And look, he's probably going to play really well for the Eagles because their line is good. It is what it is, but he probably doesn't have that many years left. And Shane's just like, look, I'm not giving him whatever he wanted, whatever he signed for. I think it was ended up being $13 million per year to sign with Philly. So I got the same impression that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, good. On the same page. Then.
But we had that impression kind of towards the end of the year too. We're like, I don't think he's coming back. So.
Yeah, but that's probably the worst part about the second thing is that he went straight to the Eagles because he could have gone anywhere else and no one would have been mad about it, and everyone would have been very happy about seeing Saquon having a good year somewhere else. Like I think in the podcast they talk about maybe the Lions being a team for Saquon. That could have been awesome seeing Saquon in Detroit. But anyway, it is what it is. It's the nature of the business, and it's probably not going to be the last Giant going to the Eagles or the Cowboys, unfortunately. And we get sometimes some of their plays as well. Just turning to the rookies, because we had a bit of back and forth with Plax about Malik Neighbors, our first draft pick this year, because he's the true number 1 receiver we have since maybe Odell Beckham, and there seems to be a lot of excitement around this player. So you may not have been to the practice yourself, but what did you hear from other beat writers about Neighbors? Do you think that all this excitement is warranted?
No, Chris was reporting it to us. Chris said the hype is real, right? Like this kid is legitimate. He's a legitimate receiver. He looks like the best receiver they've had since Odell. He's smooth in his route running. He's fast. He's got great hands. Yeah, I mean, Chris has been reporting it since day one. Like, look, we both said we kind of thought they'd go quarterback. They didn't. They went neighbors. And the early results are in, and he is the alpha. He is the number one receiver right off the bat. I wanted to jump back to your point about Saquon with the Eagles. What was weird about it too is that the Eagles typically don't spend that kind of money on a running back.
Yeah.
Like, look, Howie Roseman's done a great job, but I've been saying for a long time he does a lot of things to get under the Giants' skin. I'm not saying that's the sole reason, but when he jumped for Devontae Smith, right? He traded with the Cowboys. A lot of things he does is to go after the Giants. Like, you cannot deny that. However, it's not his sole reason. But it is a thing. But I was surprised they signed him because they don't typically do things that are outside of their plan. Like to sign a running back for that much money at that age, to even sign a running back for that money at all. So he went off his course a bit. You know, the Eagles build from the trenches. That's why their offensive, defensive lines are so good. This was out of character, in my opinion. However, but back to the point of neighbors. No, Chris has been saying this kid is incredible. He's just got to stay healthy and stay on the right path. And he's gonna, you know, it's not only the stats he's gonna put out. It's the single coverage he's gonna that's gonna result for other receivers like Wandale, even Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt. That's gonna really help this team. So.
Yeah, Slayton being our number one receiver for the past 4 years is.
And it's funny because I look at him as number 4 now, but he could really be 3 or 2A.
Yeah,
right. Like, exactly. To me, it's Neighbors and Wandale are the guys. Like Wandale, I'm no one's higher on Wandale Robinson than I am. I've been talking about it for months. I can't wait to see him in year 3, especially with a bona fide number 1 on the outside. But Slayton's probably 3 or 2A right now, or 2B, I should say, 2B.
Yeah.
So number 3 would be, I'm checking the roster right now because I forget the name of it.
Jalen Hyatt's another one we're excited.
Oh yeah, Hyatt. Yeah, of course.
But he had to improve a lot with his with what he did in college to now. So it's a whole different game. And in college, he was a speed guy. He had to learn the nuances of the game. I still think Jalen Hyatt and Dave Syvertson wrote this in the column this week, kind of recapping that draft. Who's a Dave Syvertson? If you don't know, is with our lads. He's a freaking draft genius. But he was saying that this is a 2 to 3 year project with Hyatt. He couldn't get there. So it's going to be exciting to see what he can do as well. So,
do you think the route running is the most important thing to improve for him?
Probably, and just learning different offenses. Like I don't know what he ran at Tennessee, but he was a speed guy at Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it's the route running. When to understand that he can kind of change his route midstream because of what he sees on the defense. So he's got to read defenses and things like that better. But that would probably be the biggest thing because he's got the talent, right? He's got the speed. Showed good hands last year too. So nothing there. So.
And beside Neighbors, what was your favorite pick of the last draft? So just to recap, we had Neighbors and then Tyler Nurbin, safety, Andrew Phillips, cornerback, which I believe Giant coaches are very high on him based on what we saw on Hard Knocks. Theo Johnson, tight end, Tyron Tracy Jr., running back, and then Darius Muasau, linebacker. Do you have any favorite in this group?
Yeah. Look, off the bat, from the start, besides Neighbors, the easy one is Nurbin because he fills an immediate need. And he's a ball hawk, right? 13 interceptions in college. You would think by year 2 or 3, the drop off from McKinney, hopefully, to Nurbin's not much. But overall, like, I'm really interested to see what Theo Johnson and Tracy can do.
Yeah.
Like right now, as I sit, maybe I'll be wrong. Theo Johnson to me is the most exciting draft pick.
Yeah,
because of what draft folks have said, like Syvertson, like his ceiling is higher than Bowers, right? He may not get there, but athletic ability wise, he could be the guy, right? And he could be that tight end that finally is a mismatch for other teams that we have. It was supposed to be Waller, but we all know what happened there. So I think Theo Johnson, followed by, weirdly, Tracy. I'm excited to see him as well because the running back room is wide open. He's a converted wide receiver. I don't mean to give like a political answer where I'm giving you 3 players to be excited about, but those would be the 3 that I'm excited about. Like as we sit right now, Newman because of what he's going to hopefully jump in and fill a void. But overall, Theo Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a concern for you that Tyron Tracy Jr. he's 25 already or 24?
Nah, because he doesn't have money. It's kind of like I feel like it's like Victor Cruz. He doesn't have a lot of mileage on his legs yet, you know. So he was a converted receiver, and now he's a running back. So no, that's not a concern. I'd be you know, more concerned. I'd be more concerned about the switch to running back, but he did that last year. So
okay.
And he's supposed to be exciting on with the new kickoffs too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He could be a weapon on the new kickoff. So that's going to be interesting to see how that play, how all those teams play. You know, how that plays out with all teams. But with Tracy, he's going to get a shot there. So psyched about him too.
If it's not him, who's going to do the returner? I have no idea.
That's a really good question. I don't know right now. I should. Oh, Gunner probably. Gunner will be back.
Oh
there.
Yeah. Oh, he can do the kickers also. Okay.
So and that's another signing. Like that's a guy that re-signed that I said they need to clone him or sign him for the next 10 years just for the fact that he could catch a punt. Forget about returning it. Just catch it. Because I feel bad. Like they forced Eric Gray into that role. Chris said it from the start. They forced Eric Gray into that role. Like you're going to be our punt returner. You're like, well,
that was a disaster.
He wasn't good at it. So you know you feel bad that that's the memory you have of Gray, but he could really compete for the running back job this year too. So I don't know if he would be on the kickoff return. Gray, I think that part of his career is probably over.
I hope so.
But yeah, so.
You know, maybe he can improve, but I think he's tried with us, and now we can.
Yeah,
we can try with other players. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does feel that. I mean, this draft class is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But just looking in general at the roster, you and Chris agreed that the Giants did not close the gap with the Eagles and the Cowboys. And I remember last year, Joe Shane, when people were asking him the question, was like, "We'll see." And you could tell that Joe Shane knew himself that year 2 wasn't going to be easy, and it was. I think it was worse than a lot of us expected, especially at the beginning.
Yep.
But in your opinion, what is missing in the Giants roster to close the gap with these rivals?
Yeah. So what's missing? Wow, that's a loaded question. Well, there were too many spots to fill to compete with Dallas and Philly, right? Starting cornerback opposite Banks, like, is it Nick McLeod? Is it Cordell Flott? I mean, Cordell Flott was a slot corner. Now he's going to be the guy on the outside. Like, all right. So I hope that pass rush is really good because that corner spot's a huge question mark. I still love Nick McLeod. And even like slot corner, right? You have Andrew Phillips there. He's a rookie. Darnay Holmes is Darnay Holmes, right? So then again, now McLeod can be a backup for both. But he can only play one. I mean, like full time, right? So how's that going to work? Your cornerback spots opposite Deontay Banks are a huge question mark. The drop off from McKinney to the rookie, I don't know what that's going to be. I think that's going to might be okay, but that's a huge question mark as well. I'll stay on the defensive tackle next to Dexter Lawrence, right? Jordan Riley, okay. DJ Davidson, Phillips, Nacho, like, you know, Dexter Lawrence is a hell of a defensive tackle, right? Nose tackle, right? But who's around him? Your pass rush looks good. It looks set. Your linebackers look set. But that's a huge question mark. And then on offense, I mean, the two biggest question marks, I'm sorry to say, are quarterback. But that's more because of the neck injury that I'm concerned with. Not on Daniel Jones. The neck injury is huge. ACL, you know, running the ball's a huge part of his game. He's coming back from that. And then right tackle. Like, you know, Chris was saying on the podcast this week, don't be so sure that the Giants weren't trying to trade up and grab Joe Alt. And I agree with him. I believe it. Because something Shane said in episode 2 of Hard Knocks was, well, if Jones isn't ready, we have to draft a quarterback. And you know, are we going to draft a quarterback to play those first 3 weeks? That's not something you do in round 1 to play those first 3 weeks. If you draft a quarterback in round 1, that's your guy. Either he starts from the start of the season or he waits to play. So to me, it was, were they really going to draft Joe Alt or Marvin Harrison at 3? I think it was Joe Alt. So if plan B is Evan Neal, holy shit, like that's scary, right? But if they have confidence in Neal, you know, and look, they drafted him at 7 for a reason. They brought in Carmen Brasillo to kind of elevate his game. That's on offense. That's the biggest question mark. Aside from, I mean, I think that's a bigger question mark than Jones. I think Jones is what he is. Evan Neal, it's the two guard position. Forget the two guard positions and John Michael Schmidt's improvement. If Evan Neal can't function, we're done. We're done again. Week 1, 2, 3, we are done. So then, is the answer to move Illuminor to right tackle? Because I like Illuminor as a pickup. I like running as a pickup. But if you move him to right tackle, are we putting Josh Azudu now at guard? And is that the answer? So Evan Neal holds so many cards for this team. And it is what it is. He had too many holes to fill, Shane. So I get it. But that's why I don't think we're even close to competing with Dallas or Philly. Now, could we beat them once? Yeah. Could we make the playoffs as the last team in? Stranger things have happened, sure. But as far as like being a consistent contender, I just don't see it.
A quick question, because we were talking about the Eagles and I hate them so much. So they were very, very bad.
You should hate them. Yes. Yeah.
They were very bad at the end of last season, and I was so happy that they were so bad. Do you think they could keep going like that? I mean, is it Nick Sirianni problem? I think
Nick Sirianni. Look, I think Nick Sirianni is a moron. I think. Me too. I do. I think he's Barry Switzer. He's millennial Barry Switzer. He's the millennial version of Barry Switzer. I think he had great coaches 2 years ago that were completely underrated in Philly. Now, the bad news is he is surrounding himself with some decent coaches this year. So is he the CEO, the figurehead, who's going to succeed because the team is absolutely loaded and his coaching staff is good? Maybe. But I shouldn't say moron. I should just say I think he's a middle of the road to below average head coach who lost the team last year. Daboll's never lost the team. No matter how bad the Giants are, those guys played hard. Brian Daboll does not lose the locker room. And that is more than half of what you need in a head coach. But look, I just, could they still be bad? I don't love Jalen Hurts. I never did. I never thought he was a great quarterback, even when they were saying he's top 5. I think they overpaid him. I'm not saying he's Daniel Jones, guys, so I'm not a homer here. But he doesn't impress me throwing the football. He's a good athlete, right? He's great at the tush push. He's great. He's good at using his legs. He's a good passer. I'm not taking anything away, but he's not a great passer, right? He's got 2 absolute studs who would be number 1 receivers aside from Neighbors on our team immediately. And probably and AJ Brown's right now, I'd give him the nod over Neighbors. I wouldn't give it to Devontae Smith yet, believe it or not. But it's a good tight end, running game. Like, I mean, everything's there for Hurts and Sirianni to succeed. So, but could they falter? I mean, I hope, but look, I actually said I think they're a 9-win team this year.
Fingers crossed.
I think they're a 9-win team. I think losing Kelsey, Cox, trying to think if they lost anybody else of significance. Like, that's not just players, that's locker room leadership. So I think that affects the team. Like, Jason Kelsey is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And unfortunately, from what I've heard, he's a really nice guy, so he's hard to like really dislike. Like, he's a really good guy.
He looks nice. Yeah. Looks nice. Yeah.
No, he visits all of like the local schools by me, and everybody says what a nice guy he is. So good for him. Yeah. But I'm glad he doesn't play anymore because I've had enough. But losing those guys, I think that will take its toll. And a new defensive scheme, a new offensive scheme. I'm 9-10 wins for the Eagles. That's where I'm staying. So.
Okay. So almost same question, but for the Giants now. So we had this good surprise 2 years ago where we had a victory in the playoff. Last year, obviously, didn't go that well. So what is your feeling for this year? I'm not asking for a prediction, but just
I know it's because it's difficult, right? I fall into this trap every year. Hard Knocks is on and I'm excited, right? I'm like, Super Bowl, Before Hard Knocks started, I'm like 6 wins. So it's probably 7 to 8 wins, right? And I hate to say this because Giant fans have lost patience and I get it, but that's kind of a success. If you're 7 to 8 wins and you're in games, that's a successful season for Daboll and Shane. I know that sounds pathetic, but it's true, especially with all the holes on the roster. It's just, they're up against too much roster-wise. I think if they start off hot, they could do something and maybe sneak into the playoffs. But if you're talking a lost week 1, a lost week 2, like week 1, you have the Vikings at home, and your 100th anniversary, you gotta win that game.
And they have JJ McCarthy that we didn't pick. So
right.
If he wins against
exactly.
us, then wow.
And you certainly can't lose 40-0 because then it's over, right? Like last year. You got to win that game. Then you go to Washington. And was anyone impressed with the way Jaden Daniels broke down film? I was not, right?
No.
Now, that could have just been him nervous at the interview, and he's a hell of a talent. But you got to win that game too. So then you start off 2-0, and then it's like, okay, now we can get going. So, But I still think 7 to 8 wins is more likely, unfortunately.
But starting 2-0 seems possible.
It seems totally possible. Yes. And then I think they get the Browns week 3. Deshaun Watson doesn't scare me, but they're loaded on defense. They have a really good defense. Yeah, so
very good defense. Yeah.
But a lot of things can happen. Once you're 2-0, you start feeling better about yourself. And, it's just, it's human nature, right? You start losing, and then it's just losing takes over, that mentality. So you got to start off 1-2-0, 1-1 at worst. You got to win one of your first 2, or it's just going to get ugly. So,
we definitely don't want to repeat what happened last year with 40-0. And it's funny because last year I went to the Giants game in Dallas. I bought the tickets in July thinking this was going to be a great game. And when you start the year 40-0 and then you have to go to Dallas and you paid your tickets a fortune, you're like, oh man.
Worst game of the season to go to. Worst game.
Yeah, it was. Like the Giants fan I saw in the stadium, so we were all looking at each other like, cattle going to a slaughterhouse, and it's like it was awful.
The worst part about that game for me was watching Lawrence Cager celebrate when it was like 28-0 and he scored. I was just like, come on, man. Like, I have nothing against Lawrence Cager, but dude, read the room, man. Like, oh my God, you're getting murdered, and you got 1 touchdown, and you're dancing. Like, holy crap! It was just so embarrassing, and they just got. I mean, Wink Martindale. That was probably the game that Wink Martindale lost his job. By the way, that was just terrible. So, anyway,
yeah. But I think so it was a bad game for you, Thiago. But still, when you live in France, any chance you have to watch a Giants game, then it's something you cannot do every week. So we do have NFL games in Europe. So we went both together with Thiago 2 years ago against the Packers, which was amazing in the US.
Awesome game.
We tried to go to Germany this year, but it's very popular. In like 10 minutes, there's no tickets remaining. So
and that should be,
I'm not
should
going.
be a game they win. Like that should be a game they win.
Oh yeah.
By the way, thanks for saying his name, because I was going to say Thiergal. I mean, just so American. New Jersey.
No, but
that's the New Jersey pronunciation of his name. So I appreciate you saying his name correctly.
Yeah, it's a nickname. So it's
a nickname. The name is Gauthier, but even Gauthier in English is. Because it's Gauthier, so sometimes.
Well, there was a Ranger, Julian Gauthier, who played.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I believe you have lots of Quebecers or people from Canada in NHL, right? So this is maybe why they have so much like French family names or something like that. So
and we're better at pronouncing them. Like years ago, my dad used to say that Rod Gilbert was Rod Gilbert at first. Nobody knew how to pronounce his name. So we've got a lot better
Gilbert, that's a French name. Just like Luc Petit, so it would be Petitgout.
Petitgout, yeah.
And you say, so almost the same.
Petitgout, yeah.
Okay. One last question for me. So, sure. And I think we can close with. So for me, one last question. Easy question. Which player is your favorite in the franchise history? And do you have?
I mean, look, it's too easy to say Lawrence Taylor. But
it's too easy. So,
but my second favorite, you have to say Lawrence Taylor, because like Lawrence Taylor's the guy that you got to understand when they. Now, I'm sorry to go on, guys, but I have to explain this.
No, go ahead.
When he was drafted in '81, right? I was not a fan yet. I was a fan in '83, but like it was almost like if you're walking to school every day and you're getting your ass kicked by a bully, and you bring your brother to kick his ass. That was Lawrence Taylor to the Giants.
Okay.
It was like, okay, I've got my big brother now. Let's go, NFL. Stop kicking our ass. We're coming after you now. So, he changed the franchise. He changed the sport. but my second favorite player would be Jesse Armstead.
Oh, good.
Who played in the
yeah.
90s. He played
Yeah.
bigger than his size. He was fast, and I love linebackers. So, I mean, I love the way he played, what he brought to the game, his intensity. It's a shame he never won the Super Bowl. He had an interception taken back that was a bullshit call. But yeah, he would be my second favorite player of all time. So it's a little off the path. You know, a lot of people were probably expecting like Justin Tuck or Strahan or Eli, but I joke that I wore Jesse Armstead's jersey for all 3 births of my children in the hospital,
Oh, cool.
so that's the first thing they would see. So
Yeah, mine is Kerry Collins because the first game I watched was the Super Bowl against the Ravens, and he was the quarterback.
and he's your
so-
favorite after
Since
that game.
then, yeah,
you are
2000
a
was
fan.
my first
Wow.
game ever because at this point, internet was okay. People started to get internet at home, but
Yeah,
and in France it was very hard to watch any games basically. So I don't know. I had the chance to get this one on TV, and he was the quarterback, and then he's my favorite player since then. So
yeah, I like Collins too. I liked when they got him. I was excited. Who's yours? Who's your favorite?
Mine, like, I'm not going to the original. I'm going to say Eli Manning because
That's fine.
the thing is, I became a fan of the Giants completely by chance. They were broadcasting Super Bowl 42 in France, and it was like late at night, and I was going through the channels, and I saw the game.
Yeah.
And I watched the game, didn't understand much of it, but that pass from Eli to David Tyree was completely crazy. And
Yeah.
I always loved the guy because he was a true leader, and people didn't give him enough credit for what he gave to the Giants.
Absolutely
I think
right.
people now are realizing what kind of player Eli Manning was because we don't have him anymore.
That's right. That's right. No, and there's no right or wrong answer to this, guys. It's who you like is who you like. But no, Eli's underappreciated, and what I always said is, you know, he'll obviously make the top 10 list of the Giants, right? It's going to be interesting to see where he is on that list because if they could build more around him in the last 5 years of his career, he'd be even higher. So like even at last, really like from 2012 to 2018, the last 7 years of his career, the line failed him. And the organization, I think, failed building around him. So it would have been great to see him, you know, kind of make one last run. He almost did it in 2016, but Odell kept dropping passes in Green Bay. So yeah.
After the boat picture.
Yes, I think we need the Giant wide receivers to take another boat picture to exercise the demons there. Like I want to see Jalen Hyatt, Neighbors, everybody get on a boat just to get rid of it. So
Yeah, we could probably do that.
Yeah.
Thiago, are you still here or did we lost you? I think the connection is not that good. So
Yeah, it's
Okay.
touch and go. Sorry, guys, I'm missing
There you
a
go.
bit of the last parts, but yeah, I got most of it, I think.
Yeah, it's just Eli Manning. It's a shame like they didn't build around him because he would have been he was a legend already. But it just I don't think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer because there's a bias against Eli Manning. I think he'll make the Hall of Fame. I just don't think it's going to make it on the first ballot. That's all.
Yeah, no, I agree. Completely agree. It's like he's going to be there. It's just going to take a while.
Yes.
It would be a shame not to have him in the Hall of Fame because he's won 2 Super Bowl as an MVP.
But you know, you guys don't remember. I don't know if you remember Harry Carson. He played in the 80s and 70s. He was a great middle linebacker. Made like 9 Pro Bowls. I felt like he didn't make the Hall of Fame because he played with Lawrence Taylor, and then Carl Banks hasn't because he played with Carson and Taylor. Like you get punished for that stuff, which is totally out of your control. So anyway, what
do
else?
you have
Anything
one
else?
last question, Thiago?
I think he froze again.
I'm good on my side, Jerry. Thanks again for that chat. That was awesome. I don't know if you guys can hear me properly. I was going to say like that was an awesome chat, but I feel like we could be talking for hours and hours about the Giants.
Yeah, I mean we're 35 minutes in.
Yeah,
and
thank you very much
I feel like it was 10 minutes. So good.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. It's very nice to have you and say hi to the Giants Insider team for us. And we will keep listening to the podcast every week.
Awesome.
So just as a reminder, we can find your podcast almost on every platform, right?
Pretty much every platform, yeah. And then we have a YouTube channel too. Finally,
yeah, you do have a YouTube now. Yeah,
we started it. Yeah, I mean we're Generation X. We didn't do YouTube right away, so we started that, and that's kind of taken off a little bit now. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, guys, anytime, come back, talk Giants whenever you want.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Take care, guys.